All right, thank you so much for your patience, everyone. Thank you, Steve. I'll call this special meeting to order at 6:05. Lisa, would you please take roll call?
Mrs. Cantwell? Here. Mrs. Cloutier? Here. Ms. Franklin?
Absent.
Mrs. Paduti?
Absent.
Mr. Heisman? Here. Mrs. Kelleher?
Here.
Mrs. Russ?
Here.
Mr. Schuman?
Here.
Mr. Zabrowski?
Here.
Dr. Macri?
Here.
Mr. Pisano?
Here.
Mr. Butwell?
Here.
Mrs. DeMauro? Here. Mrs. McKinney? Here. Paula Luna? Here. And Ann Cohen? Here. Any other?
Oh, I'm not sure if I'm here. Let's go past. I'm at
Thank you for being here. All right, are we all set, Lisa? Okay, we'll move on to approval of our agenda. We have 3 items on the agenda for tonight. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Catherine, second. Alan, all in favor?
That was Lori.
What did I say? Oh my gosh. Sorry, Lori. Lori, Alan, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Agenda is approved. And we'll get right to public comments. And I had asked if you could just sign in so that if there are several people, we can go in the right order. But before we go to public comments, I just need to read the rules for public comments. I assume there will be public comments. Is that correct, Lisa? We have some signed up? Okay. So individuals are welcome to address the Board of Education for up to 3 minutes each during the public comment portions of the meeting, but the board members will not generally engage in dialogue. The Board of Education chair may, at his or her discretion, extend the time for public comments. Speakers must come to the podium and share your name and address. To facilitate efficient sharing of your comments, we encourage you to share any comments you may have about instruction, discipline, or learning materials first with your student's teacher, then principal, and followed by the superintendent before bringing the comments to the Board of Education. However, if you do not believe your comments have been addressed appropriately, or if you believe they should be shared with the Board of Education for any other reason, please feel free to do so. Any complaints or concerns about individual Cromwell Board of Education employees should be directed to the superintendent and the Board of Ed in writing rather than a public forum. All comments must not include personal attacks, and comments cannot be discourteous, threatening, vulgar, or otherwise inappropriate. The board chairperson may, at her discretion, curtail any public comments or terminate any such individual's privilege of address at any time if they violate any of these rules, violate reasonable standards of decorum, are boisterous, or are repetitious. The Board of Education reserves the right to limit public comments to particular subjects. The Cromwell Board of Education values the well-being of our students and families. Those electing to make a public comment at a Board of Education meeting are strongly discouraged from sharing identifiable information of their children in such comments, including but not limited to name, age, and learning ability, and are reminded that any comments made during a Cromwell Board of Education meeting become a permanent matter of public record that may be accessible by individuals in the future. As such, any person making public comments during a Board of Education meeting is solely responsible for the information they choose to share. We kindly ask that you consider the privacy of your family and your children while making comments. And with all that said, if you'd like to go in order, Lisa, and we'll call up the first person. Okay, thank you. This is on behalf of Matt Brown? Okay,
Yes. Can you hear me?
I think so.
Light is on.
Okay.
Okay. How's that? I hear it now. Good evening, members of the board. I'm speaking on behalf of Matt Brown, 7 Court Place. I'm here to speak in support of Compian Tempo. Our family has seen firsthand the positive impact the program has had on students, helping them build confidence, teamwork, and communication skills that extend far beyond the stage. For years, Compian Tempo has used Cromwell High School responsibly and has been a valuable partner in bringing the arts to life in our Cromwell community. The decision to suddenly enforce an additional $10,000 in facility fees creates a financial burden that will ultimately fall on families and can limit access for many students who benefit the most from these experiences. More than half of those involved are Cromwell students. I urge the board to reconsider this increase and to continue supporting youth arts programs that strengthen our Cromwell schools and community. Compian Tempo has always been more than a theater program. It's a place where kids learn to believe in themselves and connect with others. Let's keep that opportunity accessible to everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Shannon. And is there someone else that's here for public comment? No? Okay. Well, you do have in your email inboxes, our board members do have several emails from people on the same topic with similar opinions on the policy, and there's far too many to read through them all, but they will be all included in the minutes from our meeting. So from here, After public comments, we'll go on to new business, which does include a presentation. We're going to go through the district rental fees, the policy, and have administration start out with that, and then the board can ask any questions.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to bring this to the board because I did bring it to the policy committee last March. We had a brief discussion about the fact that we have a policy, we have regulations, and we haven't been enforcing those regulations since before I got here with for-profit. So it has nothing to do with one for-profit entity. It has everything to do with every for-profit entity. So as you know, we've been through a few director of facilities over the last few years. Claudio Bazzano was brought on to talk to us about, to find ways that he believed things were being misused or being not properly maintained, and he came up with a list that we addressed. Obviously, if someone was misusing something, we addressed it with them directly. If it wasn't being maintained on our end, he addressed that and made sure that we were maintaining it. So a lot of things have been changing, and what he noticed was that we were not enforcing the policy. We were enforcing the policy, but we were not enforcing the regulations. So Claudio and I met. I spoke with Lynn, who's been here for 23 years. So Lynn McKinney is here, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about the history of how this came to be. So at this point, I want to make sure that everyone understands this is not about one entity. It's about, as a district, how are we going to move forward? Now, at the end of the day, I know the administration gets to make the regulations, and we did, but they're the same regulations that have been here before I got here. And because I brought it to policy, and because it does require a fee, which is not a nominal fee, I want to hear your opinions as the Board of Education. Where we'll end up, I'm not sure yet, but I really want your feedback of what you truly think once you hear the district's concerns. So with that being said, I want to have Lynn McKinney and Claudio Bazzano come up, or I could just have Lynn. Claudio, do you want Lynn to take this one? And then you, okay, sure. So okay, that would be great. So Lynn, come on up, and then Claudio, if you want to just. And a huge thank you to Lynn, that 23 years of knowing all the details and putting everything together.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So my name is Lynn McKinney. I started out Secretary, Administrative Assistant 2, and currently hold Facilities and Operations Coordinator. I do cover building use. I've covered building use for many, many years through several administrations prior to the ones that exist now. I did want to read you something that I think is kind of impactful and for all of us to understand before we get into the discussion, is that, Cromwell Public Schools is proud to be a central part of the community. Our facilities are often the hub for local sports, civic events, and cultural gatherings. We value these connections and believe in fostering strong partnerships with the communities we serve. However, while our doors are open to local organizations, the reality is that every hour of building use carries real costs beyond what we currently recover. At present, Cromwell Schools charges only for custodial services to both nonprofit and for-profit when they're incurred, and minimal to non-existent rental fees to for-profits based on past practices. This means that expenses such as utilities, security, maintenance, and wear and tear on buildings are entirely absorbed by the school budget, funds that are meant to support our students in classrooms. When it comes to for-profit organizations, the key principle must be fairness and consistency. Our facilities are public assets funded by taxpayers, and any private businesses that use them should be subjected to a facility usage fee, no matter the size, industry, or relationship they have within the community. Currently, the lack of enforced facility usage fees could sometimes lead to perceived favoritism or uneven treatment. This inconsistency is not only fair, but undermines community trust in how we manage public resources. Enforcing our facility usage fee structure is not about shutting out our local groups. It's about shared responsibility. By asking community for-profit businesses and organizations to contribute their share of the actual cost of using our space, we can ensure that Cromwell Public Schools remains sustainable, well-maintained, and focused on its core mission, educating our students. All this while protecting the budget, remaining fiscally responsible, and providing access to the community in a fair and equitable way. Enforcing facility usage fees for profit groups above and beyond custodial fees would protect taxpayer investments, ensure equity, align with market standards, and reinforce our mission. In short, our current approach unintentionally subsidizes private enterprises at the expense of our school and taxpayers. Enforcing our facility use fee structure for for-profit groups is not about limiting access. It's about responsible stewardship of public resources and ensuring that the cost of doing business isn't unfairly shifted onto our community.
With that being said, we have a structure, a payment structure. We also, it's the same that has been in place, but we just never enforced. So auditorium is the first 4 hours is a $700 minimum. Make sure I'm reading our policy because I have others. This is a regulation. And so I'm going to have Lynn just review all the prices for Cromwell, and then I'll have her review all the fees for districts, a few of the districts in the area as well, and what that entails. So what do you get when you pay this amount of money? So go ahead, Lynn, if you don't mind sharing those fee structures.
So fee structures vary. We pulled from Portland, Berlin, Middletown, and Rocky Hill. Rocky Hill is the least expensive to rent. Their fees are, I think we did an analysis, $100 an hour. We have, I apologize, I didn't have the analysis here, but I do have all their sheets. Middletown is a to be determined. So from my understanding, that's depending on who you are and what you want to do, that their published fees are a TBD. We know that Berlin's published rates for their auditorium, is, because we are questioning that at the moment, is $75 rental fee, but it's 2 times that rate for out of town. So it's $150 an hour for a rental fee. Portland is, I believe, 100. Portland is actually $900 per performance for the first 4 hours, and then $150 per hour after that.
They also have a statute, they have in place where you have to,
If you're
I
an
just remember reading it.
out of town organization, you have to go before the Board of Education to rent.
To rent.
Yep.
Okay.
And then again, Rocky Hill being the least expensive of the 4 towns that were analyzed, is $100 an hour, and that is a flat rate fee if I'm not mistaken, but a 3-hour minimum. But they do also levy a technician fee, which we have never done. Our technician, our sound booth, our lighting is typically included. That fee is a 3-hour minimum for the technician, whatever that going rate would be.
So this will change as well as we get CMS up and running, because it's so complicated to use the auditorium, and it's incredibly expensive, all the stuff that we have in there. So eventually we're going to have a technician hired to use that as well. And then just one other thing, and then I spoke with counsel, your counsel, Attorney Ritter, and she said to me, whatever you do, you just need to make sure that you are consistent across the board. So I can't pick and choose, which has been part of what people are saying is that I have the right to, according to this policy. I do have the right to waive it, but I'm not I want to be consistent for every single group that comes in, because then we set ourselves up for a discrimination lawsuit. So, and Lynn has already had plenty of people ask, and then when they find out the fee, they say it's too expensive, and then they go somewhere else. So,
And that is true. We did have the Ukrainian Society call back in April for an event, one-day event from 4 to 9 p.m. in December, knowing that we were having this discussion with the policy and those changes we made in April, I did quote them $1,400 for the day. Otherwise, I would have had to continue the past practice, but knowing we were going into a new fiscal year, I initiated the costs as they were per the policy, and that was a 5-hour rental for $1,400.
And then the custodial fees could be different, right? Because it depends. They're part of a union, as you all know. They're on call. So depending how senior the person is, if it's a head custodian, the fees are, so that fluctuates, and there's nothing really we could do about that.
Right.
So if you have any questions that you want to ask, Lynn and Claudio, myself could answer.
Can we just start with the change to the policy that was made? Was it basically to enforce the fees that were not being enforced?
We
Or
took
was there
a-
anything substantive?
The only
that.
thing, the only change to the policy, I think it was minimal, was that we were not going to not rent to out of town.
That's correct.
Right. So
Yes.
everything else stayed the same in the policy,
Okay.
right? Is that true, Claudio? Claudio wasn't feeling well today, so we're trying to keep him away. Everyone wants to be away from him. He came in.
We did not change any fee structure that wasn't already in there. We just changed some language to make it more accessible to Cromwell community rather than outside community groups.
Okay.
But as far as the fee structure, the regulation, no.
So just one quick question, and then we'll go to everyone for questions. But it was asked of me to clarify this part. So in one section it says the superintendent can waive it, but in this section it says the board reserves the right to waive or the rental fees. So which one is it?
The truth of it is, in situations like this, when we ask Jessica, it's operational. So the board then, as your CEO, you, in operational situations, you pass it off to me. So we're simultaneously the same thing in this situation. The board, the superintendent, whatever it is, and we could change, I could update this regulation so it says.
Okay, so we're just having a discussion. We're not voting on anything tonight, but it'll all be considered. So at this point, I'll open it up, and Lori can start us out.
Yeah, I'm just writing this all down. Can you just clarify? You said, just so I know what we are doing, $700 minimum for the first 4 hours. That's what you said.
That's our policy.
And then what is it after the first 4 hours?
$125 an hour after 4
For each additional
for
hour?
each additional hour.
Okay, and then the custodial fees are based on whoever.
So the district has a rotating policy when it comes to assigning overtime. Every custodian on staff has the right to bid. So it's published 2 weeks in advance. Whoever's seniority next is the one that's issued if they've chosen to bid on it.
So when you give it a quote to somebody in advance, if someone calls and says, I want to use it 3 months from now, do you have that custodian schedule? And how do you issue a quote then if it...
So every year by payroll, I'm provided the custodial wages for that July 1, and I run a chart from the lowest paid person to the highest paid person. So when I quote, I tell them it's a range of time and a half typically, because that would be overtime. So it would range from $32 an hour to $42 an hour, depending on what, or whatever that number would be, depending on the custodian assigned, because we have a rotating seniority assignment for overtime.
And then when it gets closer and you know who the custodian is, then you let them know what the custodian fee is?
Usually groups will ask, but as long as they've accepted the highest of the possibility, they know it can't go over. I've rarely been asked to come back and requote based on the exact custodian that's taking that.
Okay.
But I do provide in the billing the exact name of the custodian and the hours that he worked and his wages.
Okay. Thank you.
Alan.
Couple questions. So in previous years, the fees weren't waived; they just weren't assessed.
They weren't enforced.
Okay. What is this group requesting? How much time is this group requesting? How many hours, days, whatever? What's
So because all of the, your mic's not on. Oh, I'm sorry. Because the letters that you received talk about company and tempo, I feel that it's okay for us to address those questions. Is that correct? Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with that. So, Lynn, do you want to go over what company and tempo for this year, and then maybe do a history of over the past few years? I'm not sure actually if it's increased this year over last year. I know it's increased over time, which is great. It means the business is growing, but I'm not sure just how much, so I need you to provide that information.
Right. So again, to remember, we have never implemented the fees because of past practice. This particular estimate that was given to Company and Tempo was for November 10, 11, 12, 14, 17, 18, 19. And those were rehearsals. Those were requests for the high school from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. with the following dates of the 20th, the 22nd, and the 23rd as performance dates. Those dates. Oops.
Just explain, like, so on the nights that we have custodians here anyway,
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
it's okay. Just make sure you explain.
Okay.
That part. We don't charge because they're here. So, go ahead.
Yeah. So these particular dates they're asking for, 3 to 9 p.m., as Dr. Macri said, when our custodians are on staff at night, because they are not assigned specifically to the group that's in the building, we do not charge people Monday through Friday when our custodians are already working, because that's not fair. They're not at their beck and call, and if you were going to pay for that person for 6 straight hours, you would expect them to sit there and do what you needed to be done. We do provide them a radio, a two-way radio, for the groups that come in at night, and then they need something, they will two-way our evening custodians and ask for whatever assistance they need, or that they're ready to clear the building, and the custodian will come and help them out.
So
7
7
rehearsal
days.
dates and 3 performance dates.
So going back to your question, are you looking to see how many from last year were requested? Well, that's what they requested, but for this year. But last year, what was requested?
Last year in 2024-25, I could do the breakdown. There were 3 rentals. Total number of days were 13 rental days. But there were no fees assessed on those rentals. There was no rental charges on those events.
Matt.
I just want to understand. So they're required to pay, and this is anyone who rents, is required to pay for a minimum of 4 hours.
Correct.
So even though they're only using it, they're requesting to use it 3 to 9.
Which is
that's,
6.
That's 6. So they're paying
4
for
hours.
those 4, plus they're paying the additional 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that first 700 erased after the first date and everything else follows the 125 on consecutive days, or is it every day? Okay.
It's per day.
Okay. Who else has any questions? Catherine.
Okay, my mic is not working. I don't know why. Thank you. Perfect. So Rocky Hill, I remember we had talked about Rocky Hill, and I thought they had limited times that you could actually use it. Like, we were more open to the.
Use it in the summer at all.
You can't use it in the summer. There are other periods of the school year where they just, even though they're not using it, they don't offer those rentals. So it's very restricted, if I'm correct.
I don't
remember
have
we
that
did
knowledge.
discuss
We
that.
talked a little bit about it. There's also some school systems, like, for example, if there is a school function, I say our students because they're all our students. Company in Tempo has 50% of the student population is our students.
Right.
The other 50 is surrounding areas. So we're great at.
Your
if,
mic's not on.
Someone books it, and then if someone books it,
It's
for
not
example,
on.
Company in Tempo, we would then never schedule a school activity and say you can't use, because you now can't use it because one of our teachers, and that actually has happened right now, where I said, this is in limbo right now. They want to use, our own staff would like to use the gym, the auditorium at the same days. I said, they put in for it. It was double booked. I said, no, that's the wrong thing to do. We are holding this. You can't overbook. You can't double book it, even if it's our own staff and it's, it's our students at that time, our student activities. Where some districts will say, this depends on if something happens with our students, and then we would change that. We don't do that because people have to plan in advance. And And I know that for sure as far as Middletown because I worked there, and I happened quite a few times where was double booked, and then the school got to stay, and then the poor people had to leave. So we don't do that. We would leave if we double booked. And I don't know exactly
So essentially in the past though, we have allowed for-profits to use it for free because we already had custodians in the building.
So if there's a custodian in the building that night, so they're already there. So for example, I'm using Company in Tempo because they're here, and that's what we're talking about. If they use our bathrooms and there's paper towels in there, or they need something moved, a ladder or whatever it is, close the curtains, we can't figure out, I'm not going to have them pay for a custodian to just be at their beck and call unless they really want that. If they really want that, we'll do it. But it's ridiculous. They could just call someone on the mic, on the walkie that we have, and they could say, we need more paper towels in the bathroom, or we need this, and they can handle it. So this way, the cost is not passed down to them. We're paying for it anyway. Where we do have a fee for custodians is off hours. So Saturdays and Sundays, and that usually becomes overtime. We do have to then charge the entities for Saturdays and Saturdays, Sundays if it happens to go past when they're working or before they're working, which is rare. Then we do. Yeah, even if there's a school vacation, our custodians are here. We work around it if we can. We've been pretty good. I can ask Lynn because she's been wonderful to people. So
Yeah, and to that point, Company in Tempo has used the high school in August during the day for one of their music camps. So I think there was one day, it was a Friday, they may have stayed like 2 extra hours or an extra hour of that day, but our custodians are normally on those hours in the summer. So we did not charge them for 8 hours of custodial fees. We only charged them if our custodian had to stay past his 8-hour shift.
And just to reiterate, custodial fees. We charge custodial fees.
sorry, back.
We charge custodial fees because we can't have anyone in the building without a custodian. They're the ones who open the building, turn off the alarm, in case something happens in the bathroom, somebody slips or falls, accidents happen. So we have a custodian on staff. We would never, ever allow someone in the building without a custodian here. That's why there's a custodial charge. So in essence, the entity can't say, well, the custodian has to work for us because we're paying for them. No, the custodians are working for us to keep the building open and keep it safe, to open it up and lock it up at the end of the event.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and then I know you have a question. I'll get right to you. But it's less about the custodial fees than it is about.
I think so. I don't think anybody has a problem with custodial fees. I wanted everyone to understand why it could change.
Fluctuate,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, that's the word. Thanks.
Okay.
It's been a lot
Thank
today. So it could fluctuate, but otherwise, no
Okay.
one has complained about custodial fees.
Kelly.
My first question was, how many years has Company in Temple been using our facilities for like their performances and rehearsals and camp?
2019 was the first time in my history documents that I could stand here before you and say
So
I
for
have
the past
documented
6
proof.
years, right?
2019 was one event.
So I want to just add something because I spoke with the owner. And so when they first started, it was smaller. And one of the people that was working, the people who owned it at the time, I'm trying not to be. Danielle's mother was doing it with Sue Shine, and it was through Park and Rec. So it became, there was no fee at that time, right? Because it was Park and Rec. We don't charge Park and Rec. And that's when I spoke with Danielle, we had a wonderful conversation, and that's how it started. And then at the time, the superintendent continued to waive those fees. And then, like I said, we've changed director of operations, and this is why Claudia was brought on, to find all the things that and the policies that we may not have been following in facilities. And that's when this came to be. But otherwise, I believe that a Company in Tempo, under maybe a different name, maybe not even Company in Tempo, has been using it for way more years. Company in Tempo, oh, yeah, same name, like for a very long time. But then,
Yeah, my main question was, so for 6 years they haven't been paying this fee because
It's
of
it's
oh, sorry. Well, since they've known,
It's
Yeah.
been
used
since
our
2017.
since our facilities, they haven't been paying a fee because of the way it was waived and stuff.
Right.
So,
So,
my go ahead.
superintendent, one or two before
Yeah.
me, said, okay, there are a lot of Cromwell students, and this is, in my conversation with Danielle, I have nothing to hide. There are a lot of Cromwell students participating, and, this sounds like something that I should waive. And she did. And that has pretty much what we've been doing for everybody who has been using the facilities who are for profit, even though our regs said we should be charging. I took over, and I'll be honest with you, I got hit with COVID, so I wasn't worrying about facility fees in the first place. There's a lot going on, and then Claudio came on, and he brought this to my attention because Lynn was just doing what she's always been doing.
Well, past practice.
And so should she, because I never told her not to. I'm the one, I write the policies. Why wouldn't I know? So we reviewed the policy because Claudio came to us and said, we need to really look at this. And that's what happened. And we brought it to the policy committee. And he said to me, you're not enforcing your own regulation. I said, we're enforcing our policy though, right? So we have to enforce policy. Policy must be enforced. Regulation,
Did that address your question or no?
No.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
So basically, my point was that they've been using it. They haven't, through this whole thing, haven't been paying fees. After reading the 20 some odd letters and personally going to most of the plays, I'm not saying to waive the fees. I'm not saying give them special whatever. Is there a way to do it in stages for them? Just because it is such a big chunk of money that I don't know how to put it. But
So you're saying like a price,
eventually they're going to have to pay the fees that everybody else is going to have to pay.
Okay.
But is there a way to stage it over the next year or two or something?
So you're
So-
grandfathering?
Kind
like,
of.
like a,
But knowing that Company and Temple would have to eventually pay the fees that are in the policy or at the end, but instead of doing it installments, instead of just because you see I personally see the passion that everybody gets into our arts and it goes into our schools, and I understand we can't play favoritism, but I was just wondering if there is any way to just bring that into the discussion.
I will bring everything back to your council. Jessica's on notice because we've talked about this. The more the favoritism versus the discrimination, where it could be brought into, okay, you're discriminating. But if
Is
we
there
come up
anyone
with
else right now that is in this situation?
We have one other person, other group.
Do we charge like Rebels and those groups like for
They're
basketball?
nonprofit. They're
If you have
nonprofit.
The
a
Rebels are?
503C.
Paid a lot of money for that.
The only groups we currently charge that actually rent the building is the Cromwell Outboard Association, and they have had a reduced fee. I believe one of the letters from the Commodore made mention of that impact to them to, as of July 1, enforce the policy.
The first thing we ask is, do you have a 503C, which shows if you're a profit or nonprofit. Lynn collects that and the insurance and all this other stuff that we need. But that's a good, I just want to hear from all of you of what you want me to consider.
Yeah, thank you. I like the idea. Matt.
All right, so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this, and I also have a question. It sounds like that whatever group should have been paying something that they weren't for the past several years, at least back through at least 2019, right? Possibly longer.
Way longer.
Unbeknownst to them, though.
Right,
Unbeknownst-
unbeknownst to
yeah,
them.
they
So
know.
it's like sticker shock, right? When you find out that, well, we were paying $2,000 before and now it's $11,000. How did that happen? It's not that they weren't supposed to be paying it. It's just that it hadn't been enforced that they should pay that. Looking at this amount, I mean, I totally understand. That's like a huge difference from where they were. But I guess my end question is, like, are we making money on this when it's $11,000? Or are we just covering our costs?
Well, that's a great question as well. We, the town is paid this amount of money, and then they reimburse us a percentage of whatever it is. Would we be making money? I can't see how we wouldn't. I can't see how we would. I am somewhere in the middle because I've spoken to you guys about, so for example, the gym is a perfect explanation. When I first got here, the gym at the high school, it hadn't been touched in, I don't know, 20 years. I couldn't get the town to even have a conversation with me about helping us fix it. It was dangerous. We patched and patched because you all know that we didn't have any money, so we kept patching. So this is an asset that you have as town of Cromwell taxpayers, right? A lot of people use, and I couldn't get it fixed. Then finally, Claudio and I went back and forth. We finally figured out, okay, we had enough savings. How much are we saving? Claudio got a really great quote, and we were able to fix it. But it took 20 years to fix it because everyone kind of throws their hands up in the air when it comes to capital improvements. Is it your responsibility? Is it my responsibility? Whose responsibility? Is this maintenance? Is it a CNR project? And that's where we said, well, we're not making money because for the last how many years, I don't know, I wasn't here. I could tell you at least since 2019, we didn't charge anyone but custodial fees. So I don't believe we're making money. I think that should get thrown back into the pot of making sure we take care of these issues as they come up, but we don't take care of them every year because,
I guess what I'm getting at is,
we're not a for-profit organization. Yeah,
And-
we're not
and,
looking
you
to
know,
make any money.
I guess that's what I'm getting at, right? Like after we figure in all the custodial fees, you're adding 10% for overhead for electric costs and stuff like that. Is that equaling this amount, or
it would be
is
really
there some gravy in there? I know that's a hard thing
it
to
would be
answer,
really
right? Because
hard for us to
I'm throwing out 10% is just as a random number as far as like overhead, right? Which would potentially include upkeep, maybe add 2% upkeep fee or something. But I'm actually wondering if we should at some point revisit this policy, and again, that we'll have to maybe talk to run that by council. Like, is this something we should revisit, and maybe take a look at custodial fees plus whatever plus X amount percent that goes towards this. I just it's hard to know.
Matt, that's the reg, and if you have a recommendation, I'm here
She's
to
all
listen.
ears.
Okay.
You know me. I
Claudio.
don't usually listen when it comes to regs, but if you have a recommendation, I want to listen because
the
it's
reality
your community.
The reality is I see this amount as somewhat cost prohibitive, and I know that they're a for-profit organization, but they do, our town and the people who live in our town do get a huge benefit from it. So I guess what I'm getting at is I wouldn't want us to be making money on the deal is really what it comes down to. And so if there's a way to kind of work out those numbers and get a better feel for it, I'm not asking for that right now. I know we're not going to make any decisions tonight.
Claudio had his hand up. Can I just have him?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But I think go to the speaker though. Okay, please. Can you go to the mic?
Claudia, can you go to
Sorry.
the mic? No, it's on TV.
I'm getting messages that you're not heard. So
In my past life, we charged rental fees, and it went into account that the board collected, turned over to the city, and the city would keep it in an account, and that funding was kept there and used to fix things, because everything, whether it's a gym, auditorium, or cafeteria, which is the most common used areas, the more you use it, the more the things break down. So whether you're repairing bleachers or replacing scoreboards, so on and so forth, that money was kept there and it was drawn as the need arised. Right now, any fees we collect go to the town, and we never see that back. So we're not benefiting. The board is not benefiting from the fees. The other things you have to remember is you've done a quick analysis of what everybody else is charging. Keep in mind, you lower your fees, we'll have everybody coming here, because nobody. If someone from West Hartford wants to use a gym in Berlin, and the gym in Berlin costs twice as much as in Cromwell, they don't care whether they're going to Berlin or Cromwell. So that'll also increase the use, and it'll also increase the wear and tear. So if you want to safeguard your assets, you need to charge fees so you can continue to have those assets. You've seen what's going on every time we need to do a capital improvement, this back and forth, and it takes 2 years for somebody to agree to do something. So you need a fund to be able to support that is there. But if you lower the price to the point where it's lower than everybody else, everybody's going to come here.
Quick question on that note. I thought somewhere in the policy it said something about if 50% of the children in the group were Cromwell students. Am I imagining that?
It's all
something about-
basically superintendent's discretion. I have never come and asked you guys feedback on a reg. I'm asking you because clearly we have a large community of constituents that are concerned. I wanted to make sure you had all the facts. I want to take everything into consideration, and I want to make, like Matt just made a great point. Everyone's making great points. I want to hear all of that, and I really want to make it affordable, but at the same time, we can no longer say we're not going to charge a fee because I'm now going to go to the town because they would reimburse us. They would reimburse us the custodial fees. I'm going to go to the town and say we need to set up an account now because we are actually following through with our regulations, and you hold it in that account until we come to you and say we have a problem with the gym floor and we'd like to use, or we have a problem with the auditorium, the stage. We'd like to use the money that we've collected over the years, but there hasn't been really any money because we haven't really collected any money.
So let's let the district decide what that number is because that's what you're doing. But I've heard one suggestion from Kelly about changing the fee structure just to gradually have company tempo, get up to where it ends up being ultimately, but maybe not all in year one. So does anyone have any thoughts on that? And obviously we're not voting on this, but just giving Dr. Macri some thoughts. Alan and then Lori.
Is that change in a fee structure an exception for this group, which worries me, or is it we're going to change this fee schedule, lower it so it's, I mean, it's kind of what Claudio just said, lower for a year and then raise it back up. I don't know how, I mean, I'd rather stick to policy than make exceptions.
I think we want people that
Lori
are
was next. I'll call on you shortly.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Go ahead, Lori.
I just want to clarify what you just said. So you said currently the money that's collected is going to the town, and then the Board of Education doesn't get.
They pay us for the custodial amount, a percentage, right? We haven't really collected much money because we haven't been enforcing the policy.
Okay. So the plan going forward then, now that we are enforcing our regulation, would be to set up an account with the town. So we haven't actually done that yet.
No.
Okay.
Because I wanted to have this discussion with all of you because I think it's important that you are involved in understanding why why we have to start charging. And I could go back and look at the fee structure again. But if, like, for example, Kelly's recommendation, I would definitely have to go back to council and discuss it with her because the whole discrimination piece, how do I grandfather it? How do I, like she said, like a tier, eventually get to the 700 if that's something we're thinking of. I'm taking all your ideas into consideration. I know that one I would have to get council's advice on how do I do that through a grandfather. You've been using.
We'll just
forever.
take that back
Yeah.
to her for
I mean,
discussion.
I don't know.
Steve, what were
She's
you going to
gonna
say?
So, to Claudio's point, right, I don't think we want to push our people in town out of town and have the highest rates for in-town people. Berlin reduces their rate by 50% per hour for in-town for-profits. Our families in town attend these shows, right? That's probably the majority of the attendance. The business in town pays taxes, not only property taxes, but business taxes, and they don't put any students in this school, so 70% of their taxes comes to the Board of Ed for funding. Custodial fees, I think, is fair to cover. Rehearsal time does not really put as much wear and tear on the building. I would suggest cutting fees for rehearsal time and only at the performances when there's, hundreds of people in the building rather than just performance. And
Sorry.
And last but not least, again, the $75 an hour for Berlin that we're charging $175 for the first 4 hours and then $125 thereafter. So it's quite a substantial increase compared to what Berlin would charge their residents.
Yep.
Just a point of clarification. Isn't it Rocky Hill, not Cromwell? Or am I wrong?
We have both here. We have both. She has both here.
Oh,
So
okay.
we also have, we also just took out, if you're not from Cromwell,
I don't know.
I'm not letting you use the building pretty much. I took that out of the policy because we can't even get the people from our own town enough space and time and usage. So it really has to stay within Cromwell. We have a lot of people using our buildings, and I really can't let anybody else at this time. So I took that out, but because I thought of that too. Like, what do we do? But then we took that out of the policy.
Catherine.
I did have a couple of comments. I do think we need to be cognizant of wear and tear. I know that, for example, in our auditoriums, some of the seats have become, not usable, or one student even sat in a seat and had their pants ripped during a regular school day auditorium and had to wear pants from the nurse's office in the lost and found box, which was pretty humiliating for the student. That's not what they were looking to do for the day. So I just think that we should be, if we had that funding, we would be able to repair that without a problem. The other thing too is that looking at this, I do see that they got this place for a steal. If they were there for 13 days and only paid a little, like, I don't know, $1,000 to $2,000, that's really not that much to be using our facilities at all. Because they only, I know custodian fees isn't the issues that people have, but that's all they paid for. So I do think that maybe we can consider either doing one of the other items that have been discussed, or considering, because they are looking at 10 days, doing a discounted rate if you do X number of days within a certain time frame. Like then cutting back rates or changing our current rate structure so that it looks a little bit different and offering discounts. But I do think that we can work in some way to make it more affordable, but I don't think that we should completely eliminate, because I do think that having that money, it is wear and tear. You bring people in the building, it's wear and tear beyond what our students and staff and faculty use. So I am very, very aware of that. I look at the wear and tear in my house. If I didn't ever invite anybody into my house, there'd still be a lot of wear and tear, but not nearly as much as what it is now. So,
especially when my nieces.
Yeah. So, I just think that it's something that we should just be. There's other ways to look at it, and I just want to make sure we look at a variety of options. So, another alternative is to maybe do a gradually decreasing scale for the volume of days that are being used. It's not like they're renting it for one day and that's it, or 2 days. They're renting it for a significant period of time. I don't want that, it would be nice to keep them in Cromwell. I know I've been to their performances before and everything. I also know there are other performance studios in Cromwell that don't use any of Cromwell's facilities. So I just know that we need to come up with something that works best for everybody. But to just eliminate all fees and only charge custodian, it doesn't feel like the right answer to me. So,
Matt.
I do like your point about, maybe there's a discount for a certain volume of days, right? If it's longer than X amount of day rental, then you get a 10 or 20% discount. I think that's fair, and it also, it supports the groups that are long, using it over a longer period of time. It also, because people, when they use it a 1 day thing, they may not be as respectful of the property. If you're using it, for 8, 9, 10 days, there's a little bit more of a feeling of kind of shared ownership, even though that's not the case. You know what I mean? So I think offering some kind of a discount for more days is definitely something to consider.
The company in Temple has always been incredibly respectful of our property.
I'm not suggesting otherwise. It wasn't. Yeah.
Said something too. It was not company in Temple. It was a lot of our non.
I wasn't suggesting that at all. I'm just saying that when you're here for a longer period of time, it feels more like home than,
Absolutely.
right? Like when I'm going to visit a relative for 2 weeks, I may be a little bit more careful around their house than if I'm just there for a day.
don't invite Matt to your house for the day.
Yeah, don't invite me to your house for 1 day.
Lynn, I just had a follow-up question. You initially started out telling us the fees from other towns. Those are auditorium fees, like Berlin, $75 an hour, Rocky Hill, $100 an hour, and Portland, $900. Those are for auditorium-specific use.
Yes.
Okay. It's just such a variable, like from 900 to 75. So
I have a follow-up on that. Do any of those fees include the custodial fees, or are they all separate?
No,
Uh,
custodials are separate.
Yeah,
it just-
custodial charges are,
I talked to 2 superintendents
I'm
today.
sorry.
I'm just speaking from the 2 conversations I had today. Custodial is always a separate fee than the
So I don't think we're going to come to an actual conclusion tonight, but we did give you some food for thought. What?
I keep doing it. Because I don't want company and tempo to wait any longer because it's coming up. But I wanted to hear your thoughts because at the end of the day, you're the board. You live here. And I've had emails from, families. Again, it's 32 students that attend Cromwell Public Schools. The other 2 do not attend Cromwell Public Schools. I'm here to protect Cromwell Public Schools assets. If I wasn't, I need to keep that in mind, but I love all kids. So of course I want the Middletown kids here dancing too. So I have to keep that in mind, but I also need to respect what Claudio came to me with and the fact that we were not keeping up with a lot of things that we needed to fix.
I would like to get a general sense for if anyone feels strongly about the initial 700 for the first 4 hours, whether that is exorbitant or if you think it's fair, because we want to give you a little more direction than that, or if you think, I know Claudio's point obviously was we don't want to make it too low and have everyone coming in to use it because we also have our new middle school to think of and people are going to want to use that. So is there another number that anyone wants to mention? Not promising anything, but is there something else? I know I like your fee structure, but we're still getting to the 700, and if that was the initial issue.
I'm open to a
Yeah.
discounted up. It doesn't have to be 700. I was just saying since it's such
Right.
a sticker shock,
Yeah, all at once, yeah.
installment would be whatever we agree on or whatever Dr. Macri agrees on.
Does this go back to policy committee?
No,
Not the only thing I'm going to
The
bring
reg
back
doesn't.
to policy is
just the changing in the verbiage of
to make
superintendent
sure it
versus
goes
board. Yeah.
board and does anyone have a different price in mind that they just feel would be more reasonable than the 700 for? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I truly am asking. I truly want. You know me. I don't ask your opinion if I don't want it, Matt.
But I also
Especially
want to
not me.
respect everyone's time, so let's try to get a number.
I'm thinking, I don't have a specific number in mind, but I'm thinking we're talking about the quality of the environment comparatively to others, right? So, how old is our auditorium for the high school? Is there a different price for the high school auditorium than the middle school auditorium, which is brand new and state of the art and all that? So I think those things need to be taken into consideration. I'm not suggesting a specific number, but I think those things need to be considered with the price structure. And maybe we need to separate rental of the middle school versus rental of the high school, since we now have two very, very kind of different auditorium environments as far as age and
I do have
condition.
to include using the auditorium in the middle school. There'll be a fee for someone to be hired to take care of. Yeah, tech.
So I think that all needs to be taken into consideration. I think if we can lower it without hurting ourselves, yes. We don't want to fleece people who are renting it, but I also don't want to say that we're not getting anything back towards wear and tear.
That's
And I
true.
think
Is the
Claudio's
rental
point is
of
very good.
the gymnasium at the high school the same price as the rental of the gym at ECS?
Yeah,
Nobody
everything's
rents the
same.
gym at ECS.
Nobody, unfortunately. Only when they're very desperate.
Okay. Any other thoughts on a recommendation for what we think would be reasonable?
If we're talking just setting a fee, I think the $75 an hour that Berlin uses for in-town is very reasonable. So it'd be $300 for the first 4 hours.
Kelly, you had your hand up. What were you going to say?
In the middle and be like, if we did 500, it's like 125 an hour instead, and it's $50 less an hour, which equals $200 more. Less for the first 4.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I was landing too. I think that's reasonable. But any other thoughts? And obviously, Dr. Macri will make the decision, but we're just kind of giving her thoughts.
Okay, I think I
any
have
other thoughts,
good ideas.
Lori?
Yeah, I agree that what everyone else is saying, that we shouldn't completely waive them. I was kind of also thinking like the 500 too, before we had our meeting today, because now with these new numbers that we have in front of us, if you look at Portland, they're $225 an hour for the first 4 hours for $900. So we're still less than them. So
Is that helpful, Dr. Macri?
You've given me, yes,
Okay.
I've heard plenty of stuff so that I could try to figure this out.
Okay, so thank you
Thank
all
you.
for the discussion. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm sure once Dr. Macri makes a decision, she'll communicate it
Yes,
out.
absolutely.
Thank you, Lynn, for being here and presenting us information.
Thank
And
you,
we
Lynn.
will move on from here. And from here, we move on to discussion, possible action of Cromwell High School track allotment. And this goes back to our last meeting, well, actually 2 meetings ago, where we allotted $150,000 toward the project, and then it went to town council. It got kicked back to us, asking us to do $200,000, which we then voted on, increased it to $200,000. It goes to Board of Finance, and it dies there. So at this point, Mayor Demetriadis, as you saw, he wrote us a letter asking us to reconsider paying for the entire. I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I have his letter here that we can refer to, but I'll just read it since it's from our mayor. As you may be aware, at last week's Board of Finance meeting, in a 3-3 vote, the motion to move ahead with the jointly funded track appropriation did not move forward. The Board of Finance plays an important role as a check and balance on the actions of both the Town Council and Board of Education, and I respect the decision of the Board of Finance. I'm writing to you today to request that the Board of Education consider utilizing its fund surplus to fully fund the track program. I believe the track is a vital piece of infrastructure, and we hope we can find a way to move it forward despite last week's temporary setback. I also recognize the Board of Education's reluctance to utilize surplus funds with so many variables such as federal funding, transportation services, and special education reimbursements remaining uncertain and outside of your control. At the same time, I note that even with the fund track, more than $170,000 would remain in the board surplus. With this in mind, the Council and I are committed to working in partnership with you, including supporting emergency funding requests for our students, schools, and staff throughout the fiscal year to the should the Council prove it necessary, and continue to fund capital expenditures through the town's capital fund, as we have done over the past 2 years. I hope that with these assurances, the Board of Education will support moving forward to support the track using its fund balance. Respectfully, Mayor Demetriadis. So that's why I added that agenda item this evening, and so we'll have discussion and possible action on anything anyone would like to do with that. So do you have anything you want to share from facilities first?
So I just brought here today a cost assessment of where we are to date that we did not budget for, so that you know. I will never apologize for being fiscally responsible, even though I've been told that I didn't budget correctly. Remember, 5 times the State Department of Education changed our reimbursement rates for special education last year. So the fact that we came in with a surplus is nothing but a miracle, and I'm proud of that miracle. And I don't appreciate people saying otherwise in town. It's really, really getting to me, and I usually don't share this information with you. It wasn't poor budgeting. I didn't miscalculate. Chris and I were very responsible. I take your money very seriously. So with that being said, I have to date how much money we are in over our heads already. So I'm going to have Mr. Butwell come up and Mr. Morrow come up and let you know. As you know, we start budgeting in October. So we start doing the budget process right now. We're trying to budget for a year and a half out. We make a couple switches here and there, but we don't know what students are going to move into our district with special needs. We don't, but we're responsible. They've changed the law as far as when we have students from outside of the district attending our district, and their students with IEPs, that they have someone attending from their school system to give us feedback as well. So that is definitely going to increase the cost as we move on. And I'm saying our students need what they need, and they're always going to get it here in Cromwell, as long as I'm your superintendent. But so Chris and Michelle, if I turn it over to you, our Director of Finance and our Director of HR, they're going to just share some changes that have happened over the last few weeks. It's only October 7th.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So Dr. Macri asked us to just identify some of our cost challenges so far early in the school year. It is only October. Probably our largest staffing challenge, I believe I mentioned at one of the previous meetings, was that we did need to hire 4 paraprofessionals that were not budgeted for due to student support needs. So that was about just under $118,000 expense. We have a few smaller minor expenses just to run by you, but they're the things that pop up that you can't predict for. So things like the recent DACO situation, We incurred some costs when we needed to make sure that some transportation needs would certainly be met by other vendors, and so that cost us. In addition, we're working with our town. Our current dental costs are, we're having some difficulty tracking those, and the Board of Ed claims are outpacing the amount that we're contributing each month. And so right now we're working with the town to track those expenses and determine what adjustments we might need to make. But by the end of October, we may be behind in our payments roughly $12,000. So that may be an additional cost that we have to incur. Michelle's here because we're going to talk a little bit about the new FMLA laws, which make it easier for employees to take time off, which definitely increase our costs in terms of sub costs. But I'll let Michelle talk a little bit about that.
Chris, that 12,000, does that include the DACO cost too, or is it just dental?
Well, that was just the dental. I'm sorry,
Okay.
the DACO cost was about $5,000.
5,000, okay.
Yep.
thank-
Does that include legal fees?
That does not include the legal fees, no.
I'll let you know when I get the bill. She did tell me it wasn't $10,000, so I was happy to hear that. But obviously, we've been negotiating with them for how long? And Jessica has, and Chris Tracy, it's, you know, you were on the call with 2 attorneys last Friday for a couple hours. So
Yeah,
It
I
is
did
what
not
it is.
include any legal fees in
Okay.
my notes here because I didn't have anything to base it on.
Thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the new law that just went into effect October 1st, which is the Connecticut FMLA law, which affects non-certified staff. And what happens with this new law is anyone who has been here 3 months and there's no hour limit can actually go on Connecticut FMLA leave. They have a choice to, depending on their collective bargaining agreement, to use their sick time. The law states that we're required not to use their last 10 days of sick time, so we can't utilize that to help pay. There is a fee that comes out of their check, but I did do an analysis for the last 5 years of what our numbers have looked like. And for the 2020-21 school year, I had approximately about 27 people that went out on FMLA. For the 2021-22 school year, I had about 24 that went out. For the 22-23 school year, I had 28. For the 2023-2024 school year, I had 18. For the 2024-25 school year, I had 46, which was just last year. And right now, effective October 6th, I did these numbers, I'm at 21 for this year.
And we're only a month in. And the difference, and Michelle can explain, is the first 40 hours, you don't have to give a reason. So if people are having elective surgery, we would ask them to please wait, and can you have it, during a vacation or in the summer. We cannot ask anyone why they're taking their first 40 hours,
Right.
correct, Michelle?
The first 40 hours or 5 days, they basically don't have to give a reason. And so there's a cost impact, right? So when someone goes out on leave, you have to find a sub to cover, and that's if you could find a sub. And sometimes you're paying extra. You're paying for a retired, well, it doesn't affect certified staff, but you might pay for a retiree to come back to cover, or you might have to pay for a consultant to come here or contractor because you can't fill the position. There's also employees that qualify for both leaves. So you have a non-certified staff member who works more than 1,250 hours a school year could qualify for both state FMLA and federal FMLA, which could potentially give them 24 weeks out. So that's a huge impact for the district. Again, first year we're going through this. Many HR directors in the state of Connecticut we're all very concerned. We just met Friday with Shipman and Goodwin. We went through a whole training. We're all kind of nervous about how this is going to have an impact on our budget. Do we have enough staffing to fill this? We don't know, and we're very concerned at this moment. We're all in this for 1 month, and our numbers are growing. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Michelle.
So I just wanted you all to have some information before you make a decision. We made an agreement, CNR, big projects, anything less than 12,500. And I talked about this a couple of years ago with everyone. We came up with this system that has been working. We've made incredible progress in this town with our infrastructure, our buildings. We're talking, we're communicating. Anything that's larger than 12,500 is going through the CNR process. And I laugh because we had a surplus and we said, okay, let's take this surplus and use part of it towards the track, always knowing that we don't know where special education is going to fall. We have no idea. We had a great year last year, and then we ended up getting reimbursed more than any of us ever expected. No one expected it. We were at one point down to like 59% reimbursement. And Chris and I thought that, and we had to freeze the budget. So with that being said, I feel that you guys, I feel that you have a big decision to make, but I also feel like we need to keep our word. And I think that's always important to me. I'm all about keeping my word. And so I do not feel that it's responsible when you don't really know what's going to happen, and especially what Michelle just told you and Chris just told you, and we can potentially have outplacements that I can't discuss that we're looking at, to not have any money in the coffers. I'm tired of coming out with $1,700 or $5,000 and holding my breath at the end of every year. This is the first time that this has ever happened. You're welcome is what I want to say, because it's been very, very frustrating to hear everyone's opinions. Run a school district. My shoes they're offering a great deal of people to get their 093 for free to become superintendents. So this is very difficult to land the plane, and the way Chris and I figured it out this year has been nothing short of a miracle. I don't see this ever happening again. With that being said, it is completely up to you, and I will oblige because you get to vote on this.
And can I just add that, and speaking of keeping our word, when we started this new CNR process, I had asked a few times, why aren't we putting this in the CNR process? And I was told, well, we have other ideas. We have, not by Claudio, no.
No,
Oh.
he has, and Claudio's been part of the discussion.
Right. Feel free to come on up, but I just was under the impression that it would be taken care of. We tried to get grant money. I know Kelly Franklin wrote a letter. Yes, Representative Carpino. We've tried a lot. We've done a lot of advocating. Unfortunately, it didn't get picked up. I thought the town was agreeing that, if it didn't get picked up, eventually it would be covered, because it should have really gone through the CNR process. So anyway, that's just some food for thought. Claudia, if you want to share anything extra from that, please come on up or correct me if I misspoke.
I also think it's important to know, as a superintendent of schools, you don't want to ever have to go back to the town unless you have to ask for money. It's so easy for people to say, well, if you need money at the end of the year, then just come back and ask us. I would like to, if I ever apply for another job, to not put that on my application that I overspent the budget. I'm sorry. I'd like that in writing. It's not as simple as everyone makes it, and I'm sure Mr. Butwell feels the same way. We take great pride in what we do.
As you know, we held probably a half a dozen meetings through the CNR process that included members of what we call the tri-board, town council, town board of finance, and the board of education. And at that time, it was discussed that the $400,000 to do the track would be done by the town. And then it went into this cloud where discussion was, well, before we start doing it, why don't we see if we can get a grant?
Mm-hmm.
And then that went away. And to reiterate something that Dr. Macri said, part of the CNR process, CNR, for those that don't know, stands for capital non-reoccurring expenses. And that was created because if they put the capital funding in the Board of Ed budget, the town would always have to fund that same amount to the Board of Ed. So we found a way that the town could fund capital project that affected the schools without affecting the Board of Ed budget. We requested the $400,000. Actually, the day when I first arrived here, I was told the track was going to cost $1 million to do.
Even up to two at some
And I had just completed a track at Hartford High School, and that had cost $800,000, and that was from scratch. Tore it all down and built it right back up. And this is to resurface it for half that cost. But ultimately, we left there not understanding that the town was going to take care of the track. I had gone out and found a contractor that was willing to do it and met the requirements of the purchasing. It was half the cost of what they expected. Everybody was jumping for joy. So I don't know what's happened from then till now.
May I also say, I'm sorry, I'm passionate about this. That track, it's the property of the town. The project should be run from someone from the town. Claudio is going to run the project. Think of the money that the town is saving by having someone with experience running the project. So I have to say that I was taken aback when this failed, because we did our end of the deal. So with that being said, again, it's up to you how you want to spend the money, but just know that as your superintendent, I will not put on my resume that I brought a district into the red. So cuts will be made if I have to.
And I appreciate Mayor Dimitriadis's promise to, we can go back and ask for more money, but it also still has to go through the Board of Finance. So I don't have huge amounts of faith in that process right now. I saw Matt first. Are you good with your question? Sorry, I'll get to you next. And then
I was actually just gonna clarify. Claudio had stated something which was accurate, but I think it needs a little more clarification for people who may be listening or don't understand. When we in the past, when we would put in a large project, let's say repaving the WIS parking lot, and it was $300,000 to do that. By state law, the Board of Education budget cannot be lower next year than it was this year. So if we put in a $300,000 expense, that's a one-time fee to fix something, it has to be carried over to the next year. So the reason that we, as a group with the town, with the Board of Finance, with this tri-board committee, which is the old name for it, I don't know what we call it now, but the purpose of that was to take those large things like a track out of the Board of Ed budget, because we don't want it to keep coming back every year, because that's not right for the taxpayer. So the thinking behind it and the process behind it was good, but it all goes back to the fact that the Board of Education, by state law, cannot have a budget that is lower next year than it is this year. So the whole idea was to put it through that process with the town was to save the taxpayer. And so I think some good points are being made here about if we're going to take $200,000 out of our current existing budget, also not knowing all the unknowns that we're facing this year, that I don't feel like that's actually operating in the spirit of why we put this process in place to begin with.
Agreed. Thank you. Catherine.
I just wanted to, for those who are unaware, just summarize what happened at the Board of Finance meeting.
Because Catherine was there representing
us.
us.
And Lynn McKinney was there. We did go through everything, explained everything. It was a 3-3 vote, so it was voted down. One of the no's, and I had expressed that, yes, we have this money. It's sitting there right now. However, it's already slated to be utilized for certain things, because I knew that we had to hire more due to our incoming students, and we also knew about our bus issue, and we didn't know how much was going to come out of that. Like if the bus company had said no, we'd be spending a lot of money right now. So those were things that we were aware of, and I tried to express that. So one of the no's did communicate that if you need more money, just come back. We'll give you more money.
That looks
but
great
that
on the
I don't think
superintendent's
that's really what they fully understood of how we don't operate that way. And at that point, the votes were already tallied. The no was the no, and they weren't revoting. So I just wanted to give everybody the heads up on that. Like some people were at the Board of Finance were like, just use your $500,000 plus surplus. I'm like, well, that money's already being spent. And there's a lot of big things happening right now that.
And it was already reduced by 200 because we agreed to.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Okay. So, but they wanted us to utilize all of it. I'm like, well, that we've already had to hire more people because of our student needs in the district, and we also had the big DACO bus issue. So there were 3 yeses and 3 nos, and one of the nos did communicate, just use the money that's sitting there. So.
Kelly. Oh, I'm sorry, Lori.
So in response to the letter you read, it would be nice if people respected the vote of the collective Board of Education. We had 2 meetings about it. We deliberated over it extensively. We voted on it with the understanding that we were splitting this cost. And if you will recall the first meeting when we went back and forth with numbers, we voted for the 150. I know at least a few of us felt comfortable with that, not wanting to go over that. Then when we came back, we agreed to the 200. That was out of my comfort zone, and I know of some others also. So I feel as though we voted. We should stick with our vote, and I would not be in favor of changing what we voted already.
Thank you. So knowing that we do need the track one way or another, obviously we have that pressure. But on the other hand, there are other upcoming meetings. It could come up again at a future meeting if it's raised. So it's up to you what you want to do at this point. Steve, then Kelly.
So, couple things, right? I mean, we do have support in writing that if we need more money, we can ask for it. I understand what you're saying. I don't know if you plan on applying somewhere else. You seem very concerned about your resume, but
I'm concerned about my job responsibilities. My responsibility as the superintendent of schools is to make sure that we never overspend our budget, and I take it very, very
Agreed.
seriously. And if I was going to apply, that's my business.
Yep. Well, I mean, you are talking about a resume. So 24 to 25, we came into the school year with what? No surplus, right? Now we have a $575,000 surplus. They just brought up about $135K in expenses. So we still have $40K in a surplus if we pay for the track, or we can go back to the town and continue to argue. I don't know where it's going to end up. The other option is we need to look at our CNR expenses and reallocate some of the funding there. So that's my opinion on it.
With high confidence, very high confidence, that we'll have that information to you like we planned on October 14th. With a high confidence level, not a low confidence level, high confidence level, that Mr. Bazzano will have that information on October 14th like we stated at our last board meeting.
Kelly.
So first is the letter that Mayor Dimitriadis wrote. I understand he said we can go back anytime, so we already have gone to them many times. And the town council has agreed we will pay half. It's the Board of Finance that said no.
Right.
So even if we go back to him again, we still may get a no at Board of Finance. So I appreciate him saying we can come back, but that still doesn't mean we get money.
Right.
So, and the other part is the track is a community and school facility. If we're gonna pay for it all, how do we let the community use it if we're paying for it all? But we can't because it is the town entity. So either way, it comes out of the same, like you said, tax-paying money. So I believe we should stick with 50-50, which was agreed on. See if the Board of Finance will reconsider a revote and go from there.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this? So no action taken? Catherine?
What is the life left on it? Do we know
Last year.
for certain? I mean, it's pretty bad.
Claudia,
We
do you want to
also
speak to that?
we are also saying all of this in public session all the time.
Yeah.
Someone's going to fall, and you're going to have a bigger liability.
Yeah.
All of us are. The
That
town,
was part
the
of the
school
discussion
system.
at Board of Finance was, is it really needed? Because some of the Board of Finance members walk. I said, well, there's a big difference between you walking in your sneakers
right.
on the track and student athletes putting on their spikes and sprinting, doing transitions for relays, hurdles, and everything else. It's a big difference. So,
Claudia, did you want to add anything, or are you all set? Okay. All right. So I'm not hearing any actions coming out of this. So
I have one question.
okay.
It was mentioned by Claudio that they have their list now. Like they have their list of because they can only work on tracks during the summer. They can't fix them during the school year, too cold during winter months, and then they're being utilized during the summer months. And the spring and fall.
Yep.
So it's summer only. So, we need to be cognizant that if we make no decision and hope that the Board of Finance will approve it, we may have missed our window.
Right.
So that's another concern of mine. So that kind of kicks me back and forth. And I think that this year, if we're ever going to go back and ask for more money, this would be the one year to do it where you're not held you're not held to it. I know you don't like it and you don't want to, but I just am concerned that this track is never going to get done, and it's well beyond what it needs.
Any other thoughts? Alan?
I think the track, I think, is, critical for the athletic in the town use and things like that. With Catherine on, that you don't have a lot of time to deal with this. And Steve's point in terms of there's different priorities, and could we shift some money, when we judge all our capital improvements, is there room to maybe move some things around? And there was concern about this track is, we're talking about if everything goes right and it's just a top surface and we have to do that, but if there's any additional cost, and I says, that's another thing that I would think if we proceed with the $400,000 to do it, that if something should go awry, then that has to be on the town. It's to pick that up, not on the Board of Ed. So
Can I just have Claudio come up to answer one quick question about, I'm sorry, just like when is it that you really need to make a move? Like, do we have any time to spare? Can we let this kick around and see what happens at the next Board of Finance meeting?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay.
Depends on the contractors and how they schedule it. These are projects that can only be done during the summer, not just for this district, for every district.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only limited contractors that do this type of work. So I can't say what the drop dead date is to make sure that we're on the schedule.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. Have you asked them? Have you asked the contractor? Hey, when's our drop dead date, to give you an answer?
No, I have not.
Okay, should we do that?
Yep, we can just,
We're meeting again next week.
okay.
Yep.
So no action for this evening, and we'll get more information for next week.
And then can we ask, I know that Chris and Michelle did a good job going through and they pulled stuff together at the last minute, but can we have like a better listing? I mean, I kind of rough estimated some of the stuff Michelle had talked about, and if we use taking into account all that money that's already been spent, maybe we'll get our attorney fees by next week. Then we
What's
can
left?
look,
To see what's left.
right, to see what's left. The track would eat up a majority of what's left over if I just gave a rough estimate to what Michelle talked about with the FMLA. And so, yeah, if we can have better numbers for that for next week so we know where we stand.
what was the track number? What was that in total?
400 and, 140, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So we can get that information for next week's meeting as well. Any other questions, comments on this topic? Thank you, Claudio. All right, then we'll move on to our original intent for this meeting, which was the Board of Education self-evaluation review. As this is a board self-evaluation, we do have Nick Caruso here from CABE. Thank you so much for waiting and your patience. I do think since it's self-evaluation, it's appropriate to go into executive session. If anyone would like to make a motion to go, I know it's not on the agenda, but we do have the right to do so with a 2/3 vote. So if anyone has any feelings on that or would like to make a motion, let me know.
Motion to go into executive session for
Thank you, Lori. Is there a second? Kelly, thank you. All in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. We have the majority. And thank you all for being here tonight. But at this time, we'll need to just clear the room. And as of 7:30, we are going into executive session with the invite of Nick Caruso, Dr. Macri.